Okay, should we get started? Okay, so I'm sharing the agenda. Can people who are online, you can see the agenda, okay? Okay, so welcome everybody. It's September and we're starting another series of meetings, third Wednesday of every month until we get to the end of June. My name's Mike Morrow. I'm the president of the St. John Center of the RESC, and we're sort of half online and half in the room. There was a time when we would go around and all say our names. And I think for next month, when we're doing the AGM, I'll try and figure out a way to do that with gallery view. But for today, I think we've got a lot of stuff to go through. So I think I'm gonna just say hi to everybody. I see one new member. Any other new members that are online, welcome. And I'm going to start with an acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge the territory in which we gather as the ancestral homelands of the Beothuk, and the island of Newfoundland as the ancestral homelands of the Mi'kmaq and Beothuk. We would also like to recognize the Inuit of Nunatsiavut and Nunatukavut, and the Innu of Nutassinan and their ancestors as the original people of Labrador. We strive for respectful relationships with all the peoples of this province as we search for collective healing and true reconciliation and honor this beautiful land together. I'd also like to acknowledge Memorial University, particularly the physics department and campus enforcement and patrol, for letting us be here once again, and Chris for setting up the room. And we do pretty well by them, and it's probably good to acknowledge them fairly regularly. So I'm going to rearrange some things on my screen so I can actually see stuff. Okay. Meetings being recorded. Okay, so I have some acknowledgements. First couple are sad acknowledgements. Blake Nancurl was our speaker in May, and talking about observing certificates, and he actually spoke to us from his hospital bed, and at the time we thought he had a bad back or something, but back surgery, yeah. But he did pass away a couple of weeks ago, so he had other things going on as well. He was the RESC observing director, so we're very sorry to see that. Another one who is not a member but was a member from 96 to 2001, and many of us know him, people who learned astrophysics at MUN. John Lewis passed away last week, and the funeral was on Monday. So a few people remember that, and that's another sad one. A few announcements. Friday at 7 o'clock, we're going to celebrate International Astronomy Day with an observing event at the Johnson Geocenter on Signal Hill. So we'll be looking at the quarter moon and probably Saturn when it gets up high enough. And I think the weather's looking 50-50, maybe a little better. So we're fingers crossed for that. Fall equinox is Saturday morning. October is going to be the center annual general meeting. And I'm encouraging people to let Randy know if they're interested in serving on the executive. And one of the things, or on committees, especially the Light Pollution Abatement Committee, the different center presidents, there's been a discussion online. Lots of centers are having trouble getting new blood onto their executives. And one of the suggestions that's been made, and I think it would work here too, although I haven't specifically cleared it with the executive, is it'd be possible for people to express an interest in participating on the executive without actually being in a specific role, just sort of being there, offering your opinion, offering your insights, and sort of seeing how things work. So if you think you would like to contribute in that way, but don't really want to take on a specific responsibility at this point, let us know and we can either elect you, or we do have an option to appoint people after the executive is formed, so it doesn't all have to happen in October, but it'd be nice if it did. So give that a thought. I'll also mention the astro imaging contest, which was announced at the end of our last season in June. The details are now posted on our website at www.stjohnsrsc.ca. The deadline is December 1st, and you submit images to photos@stjohnsrsc.ca. And there are, in the instructions, there are lots of technical requirements for photos. Don't get too hung up on that. Basically, if the photo is in a form that we can post it somewhere so people can look at it, that's probably going to work. But if you've got any questions, just you can also send questions to photos@stjohnsrsc.ca and we'll address them. Let's see. Oh, there we are. Okay, so most of the people I see are members, but there may be some visitors online. These meetings are, of course, open to the public, but there are benefits of membership, and one of the benefits is having a supportive community, and one of the ways that the community can be supportive is through the chat group RESC NL Talk. Their pictures are shared on that talk line, and lots of discussion, notifications when things are going on. So this is for members only, and if you want to join, you have to contact Randy, and the easiest way to do that is info@stjohnsrsc.ca. And we have some publications. We have equipment rentals, which Chris takes care of. We've got a few telescopes, and we have member observing sessions, which we haven't done very much lately, but we have the option of going to Butterpot even now that it's closed on some weekends. And so membership, you join at the National RESC site. And members should be getting a weekly newsletter and a monthly bulletin. There's some useful information there. I think everybody's getting that, but if there's a problem, let us know, please. And if you're watching at home, could you please mute? I'm hearing a few noises which are going through the speakers in the room. So if you're at home and watching, please mute. So without any further ado, I'm going to invite Randy to come down and tell us about smart telescopes and advances in electronically assisted astronomy.
Well, this mini talk started as a members night thing last May, right? But we didn't have time for it, so I updated it and added a few slides, and here we are. So I guess apologies to all the avid astrophotographers with hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment and spend all day and all night imaging. So over the past just a couple of years, we've started to see these new, what are called smart telescopes appearing. And if you look at the four that are there, what you'll see in common. So what you'll notice, there's no eyepieces on any of these things, right? And I noticed early last year, we started to get offers of discounts on the Stellina and Vespera and the follow-ons from $4,000 down to $3,000 for these things, right? So these last two on the end here, those two there, are very similar in ability and price, sub $500. For people interested in the actual specs of everything here, the Vespera and the Seastar have the same chip, and there's all the details there. And Again, price $400 or $500 US. The Dwarf 2 is sort of like a big novel in size. And it's got two lenses, a wide and a very narrow one. Just sits on top of a small tripod. So, right. Whereas the Sea Star, when it's closed up, is sort of like a bag of flour. Weighs about 8 pounds. And as you can see here, we're talking mostly. I'm going to talk about the Sea Star because that's what I've ordered. But the specs are pretty equivalent, except for the size of the lenses. So basically, the Sea Star, it's got a 50 millimeter. It's a triplet apochromatic f5. And just to show you, the Dwarf's been out for a while, and there's some of the things that it can do: plate solving, go-to tracking, live stacking, it's kind of stuff you can get from the Orion. And again, comes with dual filters, solar, and can do 4K recording. Anybody know Kuiv, the crazy geek or lazy geek? That's his. This is from the top of his apartment in Tokyo. So the Sea Star combines, since it's a ZWO machine, combines a mount, a telescope, a focuser, a filter wheel, camera, and smart stuff like you'd get in the ASI Air. Also includes a dew heater, a dark band for filter, for darks, a dual band, and that's inside, and now ships with a solar filter, a white light solar filter. Has a built-in battery in the bottom, supposedly good for 4, 5, 6 hours. You can also charge it while you're using it. Bluetooth, Wi-Fi. Some of the sort of pictures that people are getting at it. The one on the left, 104, it's 20 images stacked. So it takes 10-second images, mainly due to field rotation and heat in the camera. So it stacks them on your phone, but it saves the FITS version on the machine itself. Then you can plug in and download your images. So here's what you get in the box. Comes with a small tripod. It's the same tripod they sell with the AM5 mount. It's got 2 Facebook groups, and boy, people have changed, I can tell you. Initially, this was announced at NEAF in April, and a bunch of people ordered first week of April, second week of April, and then it got delayed to July, mainly because they were updating what they're doing with it. And man, people won't give you an inch these days. Okay, so the Sea Star rollout, they're taking about 1,000 orders a week on this thing because it's very cheap. They discounted it $100 for the first 2 months and $200 in China. So you could get this for $199 in China. So they've started shipping now. Up till last week or so, they had shipped everything that was ordered by April 13th. I ordered on the 14th. Will be here on Friday, according to FedEx. Few people have ordered them. The app continues to be updated. People complained that you couldn't find the moon or the sun. You had to, manually do it. They've added that now in the current app. Also, the next app coming out in a week or so will also allow you to get at the individual stacked files, and also, in addition to autofocus, you can do manual focus. People were complaining about that as well. So here's a picture from last week from some of the early people. I don't know what that is because I haven't seen it yet, but anywho, this first one was 10 or 6 10-second JPEGs, and then they took it, put it in Pi. That's the FITS version. Then took out the stars on the side, and that's the kind of thing that you're getting. And this is like 5 minutes from the time you turn it on. People are raving over the quality of the sun. They're actually selling this for the eclipse. That's what they're up to, right? Orion, you can see there, has a total of 45 minutes exposure. So with no processing, that's straight on your phone. Right? And you can take that off and do your magic like you guys do, yeah? Okay, so that's probably the current rage. As I said, I think they're heavily pushing it for the eclipse coming up in April. So, just like I said, it's a little tiny unit. Stick it on, turn it on, say, go to the sun, done. No fooling around. So this is from ZWO. A lot of people know ZWO from the ASI era. They're focusers, cameras. Now they have a telescope out, I believe, as well. So they're a well-known company. They've come through with it. Another, Vayanis is the people who do those other ones I said on the front. They're coming out with what they call the Hestia, a different concept. If you remember, Celestron took their Sky Scout device that, you looked at the sky and said, go over, up, this kind of thing. So they put that into a platform that you could put on a scope. And then with the app, you'd say, what do I want to see? And it will tell you how to move the scope over to where you want to get, right? Hestia, again, is very cheap, under $200. And again, they're trying to sell this as an eclipse item. Unfortunately, it has no tracking in it, so I don't know how you're going to track very much, with on your camera tripod, and then try to push your stacking at the same time. But the image of the moon looks fairly decent. So we'll see how that works out. They're promising a tracking platform next year, which will probably be more expensive than the unit is, right? Right? They're doing this on Kickstarter. If you're not familiar with Kickstarter, it's a platform to get money to develop your product, basically, right? Fortunately, not everything that you kickstart comes through. I've lost money on a 3D printer and a number of other items. So hopefully this will come through. Vayanis is a well-known brand, and we'll see. But as I say, not all items come through. This one, again, they're calling it a smart telescope, but it was supposed to ship in March, and updates from them stopped in May. So the knives are out on Kickstarter. People have been ripped off, basically, right? So you got to take all this with a grain of salt. If my unit comes by Friday and I get a chance to unbox it and update it and power it up and stuff, maybe Friday night I can do a first light on it, right? If not, the October. So, questions? Good questions?
What is that on screen now?
That's the mirror sky.
That was one of the failures.
Yeah, you can go to Kickstarter.com and search for that and just read the comments and see the hate and vitriol from people. Man, oh man, that's...
So how much would people put into Kickstarter for something?
I'm not sure what this one was. I think it was, again, they're all trying to be under $500. This one's probably a little bit more than that. It lists...
So what they would put into the Kickstarter is basically cost of buying them.
Yeah, you get a discount. You get the first ones that come out. And so typically you get 20% off, typically, right?
Those ones might not work.
Well, it was only 500 people backed it, and they collected 2 million Hong Kong dollars. I don't know how much that is. It's 100 to 1 or 10 to 1 or, yeah. So,
Could you show that comparison chart again? I just wanted to look at the,
which comparison?
at the beginning of the talk. I just wanted to see the
C-star up there.
right at the very beginning, we have the 4 different logos.
Yeah, what extra do you get for
One more, and it was a couple back, farther back.
thousands of dollars?
Yeah.
$4,000.
The dwarf is the only other one that's anywhere near the right.
Dwarf's been out for a while, right? The Dwarf 2 has been out for a while.
And the Stellina and Vespera have been pretty cheap online recently.
The Vespera?
Both like the used ones.
Yeah, because it's been discontinued. It's got a different one now. And so as they say, do I have a picture of that? And again, they have these tiny little mounts because they want you to be on the ground to avoid wind. So there'll be a market now very soon. I've seen already somebody's come up with a 3D printed housing to go over the front to stop light and also put your own filters. And now people are talking about putting in the Barlow. All these sorts of things, right? So we'll see. If you're interested, I mean, just go on YouTube and search for C-Star and you'll find tons and tons of stuff. And now that people are getting theirs, there's lots of reviews and what's working, what's not working. A person I follow on YouTube is called the Rooster Observatory.
Yeah, it's right on the screen there.
Okay, sorry. That's where I got that from. The Rooster Inn Observatory. He's got all this stuff. And he's on all day long showing that. Well, today there's a huge, big prominence on the sun from the blunt. So
how do these compare with those telescopes that come with the pre-programmed constellations? Aren't we supposed to?
Oh, you won't get much for $500 in a go-to mount, right?
Right.
So, and then you got to put a scope on it, right? And then a camera, right? So these are all in one, and they're really aimed for the low end of the market for beginners or people who don't want to spend hours tinkering with the images and things. And you're going to have to be happy with what you get, right? It's
only going to get better.
Yeah, well, maybe next year there's supposedly a pro mode coming in the software, and that's going to allow you more access to the innards and the settings of different things. And people are already complaining about long sessions. Long sessions, you get rotation. So if you've got room, you can do your cropping. But if it's a big image, like Orion, for example, you might start to lose stuff.
Great improvement in EAA.
Yeah, we'll see.
You display on your phone.
It comes on your phone, but certainly I'm hoping to just hook it up to a HDMI onto a TV and output. One of the things that's coming as well, and an update soon, is what they call station mode. So you can allow other people to join your session, and they can see on their phone what you're seeing as well. So again, that's for EAA purposes. I don't know if you're going to let anyone else control your machine, right? Not like Big and Mike. So yeah, like I said, I paid $3.99 US for mine, and duty was or GST was $45. So they're shipping it FedEx International Priority. So I don't know how they're making any money on this thing, right? Right.
So put that in perspective, as well as cameras, give that class, uncooled chips and so on, right? Are themselves $300. Yep. Right? So that's amazing how they
obviously it was a loss leader first too, this time. So these are only ones I've seen. I know there's a couple other ones that are just coming out now. There's a follow-on to the Stellina. It's a round tube, and what they've done, they actually have an eyepiece in theirs, but it's an electronic eyepiece underneath the viewing eyepiece, I'll call it. So what you're actually seeing is there's a video screen underneath.
Yeah, around projection screen.
Yeah. But again, that's like $4,000, right? Well, that's a lot of telescope for. So,
Thank you very much.
okay, thanks. Never show and tell. No?
Okay, so what I'm going to go through now is some of our summer activities. So Gary, of course, did lots over the summer. So thank you, Gary. Did some radio interviews, some planetarium presentations, some guide and scout events, and an event in Green Harbor, right? And Robert and I tried to do an event in Holyrood in July, and the sky, the only successful group there was the mosquitoes. The sky was pretty cloudy. We were able to show people, just point out some stars, and some views, Miser and Alcor, and that was about it. On July 21st, which was also the Friday night, the first night of the Butterpot Star Party, Robert, Cynthia, and me went up to Camp Delight in Carbonear, and so that's kids with medical issues. And one of the things I was worried about was how far Camp McCarthy was off the highway, and that turned out to be okay. The other thing to worry about was mosquitoes, and mosquitoes were pretty bad. I think Cynthia will attest to that, but we had 28 campers and 4 leaders. And like we'll see for the Butterpot event, it was clear for a while, and then it clouded up, and then actually cleared up again. But we looked at a few things, and Robert showed them some images. He had his imaging system there, and they're quite an engaged group, but it has to be that night because that's the only night that the campers are allowed to stay up late, but they still have to pack up by 11. So it was a short evening, but I think fairly successful. And then we had the Butterpot Star Party. So that the Friday night was the same time, and about 5 members were in Butterpot, and there were 20 to 30 visitors there, in the same sort of situation with the sky. Saturday afternoon, we had some solar telescopes. The attendance was light, so we were talking about having to, within the park, put up more publicity. It's primarily targeted at campers, but there were really only some posters at the comfort station, so that we need to do a little bit more there. We were counting a bit more on the park people. There was a guide group that we snared and made look at the solar telescopes. And Saturday evening, we had a fairly steady flow of visitors, still only about 20 or 30. And the best part for the people who were there was one young girl who brought her little telescope that they'd never got working before. And we got it working for her, and then her uncle was with her, and he sort of followed the moon, and she was running all over the field, getting people and telling them to come and look through her telescope. That was worth the price of admission. So it was one of the best things ever. So Friday evening at Butterpot, that's Craig and Chris with his giant Dobsonian, Randy, and Gary. So this is getting ready for Friday evening. And then Saturday afternoon, you can see we're doing solar viewing, but you can see what the sky looks like. So, but there is a shadow there, so we did see the sun on and off. We had this is the guide group looking at Randy's setup, and this is an image that Randy took, so you can see we had lots of sunspots that day. Is that a white light image, Randy? Or was
Yes.
okay? And some of the other scopes that were set up, and then after the solar viewing, there were a few of us that had a barbecue, and then in the evening, again, we set up the night telescopes. It started out nice and clear, but you can see that some clouds did move in. But we had a few people coming through and looking at the different kinds of equipment. And here's Randy and Gary were set up for electronically assisted observing, and you can see nice images of the moon there. And the highlight was Dave's binocular telescope. So these are two, 80mm telescopes?
They're 5-inch, almost 5-inch.
Okay, 127.
127.
Crazy.
122 or something.
Yeah, with binoculars on the end, so they're pretty impressive. Just they're, I don't know what you can say about them. They're amazing. And somebody noticed Venus, even though Venus wasn't really high enough to look at. You can see I had to take this knob all the way to the far side of the field, and it's looking almost horizontal, but you could actually see the nice crescent phase of Venus. But there were only, I think these two people are the only ones, maybe him, that saw it because it was into the trees so quickly.
For 2 seconds.
Yeah.
I didn't want to spoil it for others. It was kind of cool to see Venus. I think for those that saw Venus was reversed from the very obvious crescent moon that was.
Yeah. And then August 25th and 26th, there were 5 of us out at Terra Nova for the night sky celebration. Richard and his girls, Gary and Robert and Cynthia and me. And we went back to crafts and observing at the activity center on the Friday night. That's always a little bit crazy. This is the poster for it. About 150 visitors. And then Saturday afternoon, solar viewing at the visitor center, and then Saturday evening at Sandy Pond. And it was facilitated by David Saunders, Yolanda Collins, Kathy Sweetapple, and some of their staff at the park. So one of the things they had up, which Cynthia and I saw it during the day, but it's more impressive at night. They have some posters called The Park After Dark, talking about the effects of the biological and just observing effects of artificial light at night. And Kathy Sweetapple, who's an artist, has gone through and outlined some of the images, or all of the images, with glow-in-the-dark paint. So if you shine your light at this and then turn your light out, you see the outline of the bat. So it's kind of cool. And some of the pictures are by Dave Newberry. So this is David Saunders and Kathy Sweetapple. This is their sign about the Dark Sky Preserve, and they're making a big metal one of these, and there's a few of these around the park already. And inside the activity center, they had stuff about light pollution. They had some crafts. David Saunders had made up the same sort of thing that Doug Ruschi did a few years ago, showing the effects of different light temperatures. There was a craft where they made tea light planets. And what they were is basically a little tea light candle with like a ping pong ball painted on top of it, and different displays. And we put out some handouts as well. And then, as it started to get dark, we went outside. So here's Richard, Robert, and Gary. There's Sue looking through the binoculars. But this is, of course, before it got very dark. We were looking at the moon at this point, and then it got dark and got pretty crowded and kind of crazy. And but we were able to see Saturn as well. And then Saturday afternoon, we went to the visitor center, used to be called Saltons Brook. And we set up now, the last 2 years, we've set up between the visitor center and the wharf. So we used to set up near the parking lot, and people would go by and say, who are those crazy people? But it turns out that if you go on the front lawn, sort of near the wharf, you look like you belong there, and people naturally come over and talk to you. And so this is an image that Gary got on his camera. So there were some sunspots and some nice prominences, and you can see where we're set up here. And we had the solar system walk using Chris's little placards. Going from this rock is just at the edge of the wharf out to the parking lot. We measured that, figured out the distance, had all the planets spaced out. So where we were fairly short-handed, we could just, people could look at it self-guided. They could go over, we'd say, okay, now that you've looked at this, go over and look at, here's the planets. And they could stand there and sort of see if the Earth is here and the Earth was, you know, maybe 7-8 feet away from the sun here, Neptune is, they could just see Neptune off in the distance on running up the other side of the building. So we thought that worked okay. There's Lori and Emma, who are members, some other people. You can see it was, and there's Dave Newberry. You can see it was, there were clouds, but we were getting shadows. We were still seeing the sun on and off. So I think that was a fairly successful evening. And then at Sandy Pond, it turned out to be nice and clear again, a little bit hazy, but we set up in the parking lot. This Kathy Sweetapple and Jean-Luc, and we forgot her name, but they were helping us out and sort of controlling where people went. They park in one parking lot and we set up in another parking lot. This is Blair, who comes regularly. We see him every year at Terra Nova. Richard and his girls looking at the moon, I suspect the way that's pointing. And so that was a nice evening as well. So that's my sort of report on what we did. And now I'm going to go into our observations over the summer. And the first thing we observed was that it was cloudy a lot. So one of the things I pulled all of these off of the art. So people at home, can you hear me and see things?
Yeah, I can hear you and see things.
Everything's good.
Okay, good. I shouldn't ignore you. So one of the things I could do going on RASCNL Talk is see when things actually got submitted. And there'd be a little burst when there was some clear sky. And then there'd be chatter and nonsense, but not many observations. So our last meeting was 22nd of June. We had 3 more days after that where people saw things. We had about 6 days in July when people could see things, 8 days in August. And I think we've actually gone a little bit further than 3 days in September, but maybe not. So over
4 months, 20 days.
Well, 2 months, really. 3 months, not many. So this is sort of representative of the summer. This is Cynthia's picture of the sunrise in July, and there are some clouds there, and there was lots of smoke. So a lot of the images that were, and I'm not going to go into a lot of the technical detail. It's on RASCNL Talk if you want to see it, because I do have a lot of observations and some other things I'm going to do as I go through this. But people were taking pictures of the sun just through the smoke. So we were seeing, which I'm not endorsing. There was a lot of discussion about that on the talk list as well. But we had a lot of subject lines that were things like smoky sun. So this is John Nugent, and you can sort of see some sunspots there. But here's another one from Chris, smoky sun, and you can certainly see the sunspots there. And I don't think you had a filter there, right? That was just a picture through the smoke.
I know.
Yeah, so
The whole life.
don't try this at home.
But the picture on the right, I mean, you could just sort of stand there and stare at the sun.
Yeah, don't stare at the sun.
Yeah, but I mean,
Randy, you can edit that out, okay?
don't do that.
So I did it properly with the PST. So this is July 15th and 18th. And there were some, and the sun is really getting to be a lot of fun right now. We're well out of the solar minimum now. So some really spectacular prominences and sunspots. This is the one we've already seen from the star party from Randy. Robert did a white light shot beginning of August, and just sunspots all over the place. And the one that we just saw of Gary. So lots of things in the sun. Some other solar systems. So I'm going to sort of group things, not chronologically, but sort of by where they are. So our last meeting last spring was June 22nd. And people noticed at the end of the meeting that when we looked out the window, you could see this nice shot of the moon and Venus. The moon's actually pretty much like that tonight too, right? Yeah. And so a few people took shots, Chris and Jim. And here's one that Robert took in August with nice earth shine on the moon. This is one that I did in September when I was actually doing something else. That's what I was doing, was trying to get a shot of Saturn with a Daub using a video. So I did one in August and one in September. So Saturn is now becoming a nice object to look at, and hopefully on Friday we'll be able to look at Saturn a bit. And Richard's the first one that did Jupiter, because you probably had to stay up fairly late to do that.
Yeah, I think when I took that one, I had an afternoon couch and I went out at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
Right up there. So I'll go back out.
Okay, so it's the only Jupiter we got so far, so good work. And we'll be getting more Jupiter as we go along. And Gary's been getting fireballs and meteors and all sorts of stuff. So he posted this one in June. He posted this one later in June, and I assume that chronologically it goes this one, then this one. And it goes bang there. And he got some of these are Perseids and some are lots of other things, right? And
What's the time frame for that?
That's 12 hours. Overnight.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love Gary's meteor camera shots.
So wide angle camera.
It's 8 millimeter. So it gets me down to 7th magnitude. And you see that the one on the right shows you the clouds, and will also show you insects, satellites, and you can tell the difference between them. Like the blinking one there is SpaceX satellites.
Oh, okay.
Rainbow light. The bright one there on the left there.
Okay, and the beginning of September, comet Nishimura was up, but not for very long. It was visible. I guess now it's following the sun down in the west, but it's too close to see. But earlier in September, it was up a little bit before the sun, but you had to get up about 5 o'clock. So Jim Johnson did this one. Jim, you're online, right? You did this when you were out on the rig?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, and you can see the tail quite nicely there. And so 2 nights later, I had a try, but it was awfully murky, and you could barely see any stars. But I got very lucky with the alignment. And when I went to where Stellarium said it should be, there it was. And so in this case, you can't really see the tail unless you have a really good imagination. But I took 20 frames, 22-minute exposures, and Deep Sky Stacker rejected 16 of them. So that gives you an idea of what the sky looked like. And this is what Venus looked like at the same time. Well, it doesn't look like it. So a little bit overexposed. But I used comet stacking so that it keeps the comet in place, and then the stars get spread out. So you can see that it did 3 images and then rejected a lot of images, and then one more image later on. And I tried all sorts of things with the threshold, which lets it see more stars and less stars. And I probably stacked it half a dozen times, and I never got more than 4 images into it. But anyways, that was it. And then we never really had a clear morning after that. So there you are. So I'm now going to go into the deep sky objects, and this is where I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to add slides that show where they are, because we've been doing this for a long time, and sometimes I know where the objects are, sometimes I'm not sure. I'm sure there's always people watching that don't know where the objects are. So I'm actually going to try and show where the objects are and group them as we go through. And I'm going to go through using, so I'm going to do this going from high right ascension to low. So for people who haven't done this sort of thing, if you start from Polaris and take a line out, just nip past the edge of Cassiopeia, that's 0 hours. And then if you go clockwise, they get higher, but I'm going to go counterclockwise. So I'm going to start with things that are around 23 hours right ascension. So that's going to be in around here. This is the back end of Cygnus, the tail of the swan, and that's Alberio, that's the head. So I'm going to start behind the swan, go through the swan, and end up back over here. Actually, I'm going to end up almost back around here somewhere, near Cassiopeia. So the first thing, I think this is one of John Nugent's, it's going to be one of John Nugent's images. So he started in this region. So there is Cygnus. So this is going to be around 23 right angle, 20 right ascension, 23 hours. So there's Cygnus, the head of the swan, the tail of the swan, and we're back here very close. Remember I said that 0 hours goes past this edge of Cassiopeia. So I'm just over that into 23 hours. And we're going to see in his image the bubble nebula, which is basically a very hot central star pushing stellar wind out and creating sort of a bubble around it. It's an emission nebula. M52 is an open cluster and that hot central star is about 44 solar masses. M52 is an open cluster about 4,600 light years away. And he's got NGC 7538, which is a protostar that's about 300 times the size of the solar system and about 9,000 light years away. So again, that's in here behind Cygnus. And there's the image. So there's the bubble nebula. There's the protostar NGC 7538. And there's the open cluster. So a very nice image there. And the technical information's here, but that's available on the RASC NL talk. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because I want to show people where things are. So I haven't always used the same view on Stellarium, but again, I've zoomed in a little bit this time. Here's Cygnus again. And the next thing we're going to look at are a couple shots of the Cocoon Nebula. So that's in around here. So there's Deneb, and that's the tail. And so the Cocoon Nebula is a star-forming region, so gas where stars are forming, about 15 light years across. And there's also a dark nebula, a dust cloud in there. So the first image is from Jim Johnson, and it's quite spectacular. So he did this one actually in May, but didn't process and get it posted until September. So there's the dark nebula, and there's the Cocoon Nebula with some new stars in it. And I tried that one as well in September, couple nights, and it's sort of 180 degrees from in various ways from Jim's image. But again, there's the dark nebula there. And the next region we're going to look at is the Elephant Trunk Nebula. So again, we're still in the same part of the sky. This is Cygnus and Deneb. So here's where the Elephant Trunk Nebula is. And it's a region, I've zoomed in on it here in Stellarium, and it's a region of interstellar gas and dust, and it's only about 2,400 light years away. And the interesting thing is that this sort of leading edge here is being illuminated by this bright star here. And so when we look at John's image, there's that star lighting up the little elephant trunk part of this. Okay, so we're still in so that's from August, and we're still in the same region here. So here's Cygnus, so I've sort of zoomed out a little bit. There's where we just looked, the Elephant Trunk Nebula. Now the Iris Nebula is over here near Cepheus, about 1,300 light years away. It's a reflection nebula, and it's blue because it's got a lot of very tiny dust particles. So for the same reason that the sky is blue, but there it's because of reflection or scattering from molecules. This is scattering from of a bright star, bright central star, from dust particles. And this is Jim Johnson. No, sorry, this is Bernard's, my apologies. This is Bernard's image, which he just posted yesterday, I think. And there's been a lot of wows on the RASC NL talk. That's a pretty spectacular image. And what can you say about that? It's just beautiful. Bernard, are you online? Oh, he's driving. Okay. So anyways, if you're on RASC NL talk, go on and tell Bernard this is spectacular. Okay, so lots of us took images of the what used to be called the East and West Veil nebulas. It seems like the West is now called the Filamentary Nebula. So now we're actually into Cygnus. So here is Cygnus, there's Deneb, there's the wings of the swan. So now we're right into that. And this is a loop of gas, which is a supernova remnant. So a star that was 20 times the mass of the sun 10,000-20,000 years ago, blew up. And this is basically the remnants of that star still moving away. Very photogenic object. So John Nugent did some shots, and this is the Western Veil Nebula, or the Filamentary Nebula, seems to be called now. Just beautiful colors there, John. And this is his corresponding shot of the Eastern Veil Nebula. Again, nice separation of the red and the blue there. So that camera is working really well. I did a shot of the Eastern Veil Nebula. The cameras are all oriented differently, but same sort of thing. Not as much blue. Robert did the Western Veil Nebula, and he was experimenting with the effect of this light pollution filter. So not doing only doing 1 5-minute exposure, but you can see it there and you can see the effects of his filters. And then he did the Eastern Veil Nebula and got, again, beautiful colors in that one. That's 12 3-minute exposures. Okay, so we're yes.
A lot of the nebulosity is lost by the projector. Yeah. You're seeing on your screen much better picture than what we're seeing.
Let's turn out blue one.
I think it's just the resolution of the projector.
Could be. Is that a little bit better?
I think if you fill a room like black switches. Just increase the contrast.
Okay.
Much better.
Okay, thanks, Randy. Okay, and then I think this one was John did a shot of the Pelican Nebula, and so this is again we're in Cygnus, very close to Deneb. We're at 20 hours, in a bit, 20 hours, 48 minutes, right ascension. And again, this is a gas cloud, some star formation. And it's a very nice image. I'm not sure I've tried looking at it in different directions, and I'm not sure I see the pelican in there. Anybody see a pelican? John, do you see a pelican?
Nope.
Okay.
It is cropped
But
in a
that's
bit
the
because I
Pelican.
had some big dust spots.
Okay, well, that's the Pelican Nebula. And then the image that prompted this one also got a lot of discussion over the summer. So this is going to be an image from Jim Johnson that goes all the way from over here on Deneb to over here. So basically a lot of the nebulosity in the Cygnus region around Saturn, which is there, and Deneb. And I'm going to point out the Crescent Nebula, which is here. The Propeller Nebula is up here. The North American Nebula is down here. And so they're all emission nebulas, slightly different distances. The Propeller Nebula, it's not clear what the distance is. So here's the image, and this is a 10-panel mosaic. Incredible amount of work's gone into this. So this is 153 minutes exposures for 17 hours and 17 and a half hours in total. So H alpha, 195 minute exposures for red, 194 for green, 212 for blue, and then stitching it all together. So there was some discussion on RASCNL talk, but there is the Crescent Nebula down there. There's the Propeller Nebula there, Saturn and Deneb, and there's the North America, there's Mexico, there's the North American. I think that's what makes it North America, right? That's Mexico. And there's, so does anybody see a pelican there?
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Most of the fish.
Okay.
Go to the top of the pelican.
So what set?
That's his head. Go a little bit over. That's his belly.
Okay, yeah, I see it there. Yeah.
And you see his two eyes.
There's the eyes there. Thank you very much. Okay.
No problem when you're on drugs.
Okay, so and Jim also did a close-up of the Propeller Nebula, and I guess this is sort of it's SHO, so that's like a Hubble palette. So very, very lovely image. And then Robert did a shot of the Dumbbell Nebula. So now we're sort of past Cygnus. So this is Albireo. So this is the head of the swan. And this is Sagitta, which looks like an arrow. Here's Vega and Lyra. And so the Dumbbell Nebula is down in here. It's a planetary nebula. So this is a star that's like the sun, or up to maybe 7 or 8 solar masses, less than 8 solar masses. And it's a star that's gone through its red giant phase. And basically the outer layers have gotten so far away that they're not bound very strongly anymore. The outer layers are escaping, and what's left behind is the hot core of the star, a white dwarf in the center. And so that's what a planetary nebula is. And there's some of the most interesting things to look at. And so this is Robert's shot of the Dumbbell Nebula. And so there's a white dwarf in there in the center. And this is basically what was the outer layers of that star. So this is a star that wasn't big enough to go supernova. So this is what its sort of end is like. And in 10, 20,000 years, that outer layer will have dissipated and there'll just be the white dwarf left there. And then this one is to illustrate something that Chris did. So this is Vega and Lyra, and the Ring Nebula is between these two bright stars, just not quite in the center, but pretty close, and it's a planetary nebula. I don't know what that says. That shouldn't be there. No, galaxy. It's got nothing to do with galaxy. I must have copied that from somewhere else. No, I think that's probably from one of the other slides. You'll see somewhere along the line we're going to get a galaxy. It's just a cut and paste error. I didn't get rid of it. But the Ring Nebula is very impressive, but the really sort of technically impressive image we're going to see is this Epsilon Lyrae, which is called the double. So it looks like a double star, but when you look closely, each of those components is actually a double star. So Chris had to do some tricks to resolve them. So there's the Ring Nebula. I guess that is the white dwarf there in the center.
There is actually a galaxy in that. It's, you're almost on top of it. You can't really see it. It's very faint even when you're looking at it on
Okay, so maybe I had picked out that galaxy, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, you can see a fuzzy dot. See it online.
Yeah. And so here is the double. So Chris described how this was done, but basically he had an image exposed enough for you to be able to see the stars, but then very overexposed for the two double stars. And then he made a layer where he masked those off and did another
very short, well, actually a short video.
Yeah.
And all of planetary photography.
Right.
And just taken with the same telescope, same camera, same pointing, same everything. It's just long exposure, same camera, even just one long exposure and a very short video.
So there's the two stars in this double star and this double star, and I've sort of zoomed in on them there so you can see it there. So that's quite impressive, and not much sharpening. So very nice. And one of Robert's favorites, one of the first things I learned about Robert when I started going out to Butterpot was that the wild duck cluster was his favorite open cluster, and it still is. So now here's Cygnus. Now we're moving down into a region between Cygnus and Sagittarius, which is an archer, but it looks like a teapot to me and to everybody else. And there's a bit of the Milky Way you can see in here, and there's a lot of objects down in here. It's a very rich part of the sky, but not very high. And so the wild duck cluster is an open cluster. So these are stars that were born together and haven't yet escaped. And there's Robert's shot of the wild duck cluster with his 5-inch refractor. And it's just a single shot, no guiding. And so there's the wild duck cluster now. So we've gone further down into this very rich area, and we're going to look at the Eagle Nebula. So there's we had a couple of Eagle Nebulas sent in. So this is an open cluster with a lot of nebulosity around. So it's really a star formation region, and one of the things that it's famous for is the pillars of creation. And here's one from Bernard, and that's again just spectacular. Right? That looks like a Hubble image, and then I think that's what some of the comments were. And there's the pillars of creation, and so this is the Eagle Nebula, and Robert did that as well. This is a sort of a mirror image of Bernard, so I guess it's just it's a sort of different magnification. There's the pillars of creation in there, and you can see more of the sort of eagleness of the Eagle Nebula in that image. Again, a very nice image. And then we're now almost all the way around the sky. We're getting close to the Big Dipper, Ursa Major, and there you see, there's where that I cut and pasted from. So there's the 25 million galaxy. So this is the origin of that spurious.
There's an extra zero for the Red Nebula galaxy. Quite a bit further away.
Yeah.
But anyway.
And so this is called the Pinwheel Galaxy. And the reason it turned out we both looked at this the same night, and it's because back in May, Koichi Itagaki discovered a supernova there. And in August, we had a clear night, but it wasn't going to be a very clear night. It wasn't going to be for very long. So there was no collusion, but I think Robert and I both had the idea that if we only had a few minutes to look at something, maybe we'd have a look and see if we could still see the supernova. So you can see it wasn't a great night. But this is the galaxy, and there's the supernova there with the blue lines. And Robert got a nicer shot of it. And again, his is kind of a mirror image of mine, but there's the supernova there. Okay. And Orion is a winter constellation, but if you stay up late enough, you can now look at Orion too. And so again, this is going to be a bit of a panorama. So you can probably guess who took it. And so Orion is the hunter. It's sort of over on the other side of the sky from where we've been looking so far. Well, but we're getting down into sort of low. I don't have it down here. Right ascensions, but we have the Orion Nebula, which is a star-forming region. These are all 1,300 to 1,500 light years away. The Running Man Nebula, and then the Horsehead Nebula, which is some red nebulosity, but with a dark, basically dust in front that looks like a horse head. Barnard 33, a lot of the dark nebulas are Barnard. And then the Flame Nebula here. So that covers quite a wide part of the sky. This is an emission nebula that's excited by this bright star Alnitak. And so this was from Jim Johnson, the beginning of the month. And there it is, the Orion Nebula, the Running Man Nebula. There's the Horsehead there. I don't know if you can't really see it on the screen. It's there. And the Flame Nebula down here. So that's fair warning that winter is coming. And finally, we have Jim's Fishhead Nebula. So we're almost back to Cassiopeia. So we're getting down to 2 hours right ascension. And the Fishhead Nebula, again, that's a gas and dust region. I guess it's sort of part of the Heart Nebula. And Jim did one shot of this with one kind of filter, this is the Antlia tri-band filter, and there's discussion online, and this using David's
But not anymore. I think Jim owned it now.
whatever, but it's always going to be David's.
This is with the 800 millimeter
Yeah.
telephoto lens.
So very nice image
With one filter.
with one filter. And then Jim did a trick here. He did another filter, an optical.
Second filter, yeah, an L-enhanced filter. So I basically have 6 channels of different filters, basically.
Yeah, so he was able to do some subtraction because the red in one of the filters has basically 2 bands or 2 molecules or light from 2 molecules coming in, or 2 atoms. and the optilon just has one. So by doing subtractions in the red, he could separate the H alpha and the sulfur, which let him do sort of a Hubble palette. And so very nice. So that's, I think, it. So the next thing we have is the sky this month. And Robert, I guess, Robert, you're there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me see if this will come up and if it will be. Take it away, Robert.
Okay. That says the day-night cycle for
No. You say the word. You typed it, you say it.
I could say it when I first found the word, but I've since forgotten, so you'll have to forgive me on that. And I think there should be a space between the.
Randy's got his hand up.
Blake mentioned that was a new word that he learned from our meetings.
Oh, so even Blake didn't know this word, so I don't know about this. Anyways, okay, the Nycthemeron would be my try at it.
That's probably very, very close. Nycthemeron, something like that.
Okay, day-night cycle. Go ahead.
Day-night cycle, anyway. So anyone can look at this. It's just where we are right now this time of year with that day-night cycle, the number of hours of light compared to dark, and when we can go out with our telescopes. Of course, all you have to do is look out and see if it's dark, I suppose, and then you can go out with your telescope. Anyway, if you want to see the technical terms for all the different times, like for civil and nautical and astronomical twilights, there it is. And let's go to the next page or the next. And here we have an image of the sun taken today by NASA. And as you can see, still full of lots of sunspots. So by all means, if we can get some sun, a sunny day like today, and you got a white light filter, or if you have the hydrogen alpha filter so you can see the prominences, then it would be good to have a look at the sun at this time.
Yeah, I'm going to interrupt with a quick question for people who know, because I forget. Are we still on the way up in the solar cycle? Or have we peaked, or are we?
I don't think anybody can really say for sure.
But more or less,
We're on the way up.
we're on the way up, but we must be getting pretty close to the top.
I think so.
January.
January, February 2024, 2025.
Okay. Okay, but that's good. We're still up. Going up is better than going down. Okay, go ahead, Robert.
Yeah. Okay. So then the moon, as it appears tonight, 6 days old and 27% lit. So it's a good time for looking at the moon with the terminator that presents the shadows very, very well. So have a look. Planet roundup. Mercury is emerging in the morning sky, an hour and 35 minutes before the sun. Venus is also emerging in the morning sky, rising at 3:18 Newfoundland Daylight Time. And Mars will soon pass behind the sun at its solar conjunction and therefore not currently visible. Jupiter is currently visible in the evening sky, becoming accessible as darkness falls around 9:38 when it reaches about 7 degrees above your eastern horizon. So it's a little bit low yet, but certainly it is doable right now. So hoping to see some of the planet imagers get some current images of Jupiter, and hopefully at our session Friday night, I don't know if we'll be there in time, or if the geography is such that we get a look at it before we call it a night. Anyone comment on that?
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Okay. And Saturn currently visible in the evening sky as darkness falls. And it also is a good object for us at this time of the year. So
Yeah, my guess is we won't see Jupiter, but we should see Saturn.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking as well. Uranus becomes accessible late evening if you're so inclined to try for it. 21 degrees above the eastern horizon at that hour there, 23:14. Neptune first becomes visible at around 9:22, and it reaches also 21 degrees at that particular time. It will be the highest point in the sky at about 1 o'clock in the morning. And there's your sources for finding more information about the planets. Comet roundup for Wednesday, the June 20th. I think that one might be a mistake. But I think the information is correct, but
yeah, I think so.
Is the June. So that should say September. So sorry about that. And so the new comet is shown there, and but we know that it's a very difficult object to get from our northern hemisphere. I think it's better in the southern hemisphere. It often is that way. I believe it's in the says it's in Leo, so that's going to be very much skirting the horizon, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just following the sun down.
Yeah, it's really probably, it's a challenge. And anyway, there's a few more comets there as shown. So 9, and the magnitudes aren't too crazy. So it could be done for anyone into the imaging. Asteroids, there's 4 that are fairly bright. They will certainly look like pinpoint stars. So that's the type of thing, the type of objects you need to go out night after night and either have a good memory to have memorized the position of the stars from one night to the next to see which one moved, or take some photos and note the change in position, and you'll know that you had seen it. Supernova M101, the Pinwheel Galaxy, we still have that supernova visible. There, it's probably dimmed a little, but I don't think it's dimmed an awful lot. And there's another one in NGC 1097. I don't know if there's another name on that galaxy other than just the NGC, the new general catalog designation, but certainly there's the RA index, so you can give it a try. And moving along, that takes us to the table for when we see our meteor showers, and the next one is the Ornids, as shown there. And the ISS is there's the passes that we have in September, and certainly you need to go to the site Heavens Above. It must be below on the next page, but Heavens Above is where you'd go to look at other possible satellite information that you could look for satellite hunting. And that brings us down to September and October's list of well-placed objects for deep sky and binocular, and a challenge deep sky object for each of those months as well, if you're so inclined to be up or take it up on the challenge. Love to hear somebody who has done one of these and see if they can actually pull it out at the next meeting, perhaps. And continuing on, we now have observing sessions, and that's there for you to read at any time you wish by going to our website and finding this document. I'm not going to go through all the do's and don'ts that are shown there, but some important information nonetheless. And finally, that takes us to our observing calendar. And as we can see, we missed out on the possibility of Butterpot Park deep sky observing due to the weather around new moon. And but we can see International Fall Astronomy Day and first quarter moon at Geocenter coming up very soon at a Geocenter near you. So hopefully we'll get to see a lot of people out there. Hopefully we'll have some luck with the weather for a change at our observing sessions. And I think that pretty much does it for me, unless there's questions.
So I won't bother making a full screen game. This is just the last slide anyway. So we've got International Astronomy Day on Friday. We've already heard about that. The next meeting is going to be the third Wednesday in October, and that's going to be the AGM. And as I said, if you're interested in getting involved, you don't need to be the president right away. Let Randy know, and we can get you involved, or if you want to be on one of the committees, that's a good thing to do. And we're also going to have International Observe the Moon Night about a month from now. And Robert is working on a location for that. And we'll have an announcement about that coming up. Okay, so that's it. Folks online, thank you for joining us. I'm probably not going to monitor things. I'll probably close down the Zoom meeting now, so I don't forget to do that. But thanks everybody for coming. There's coffee and donuts for the people who are here. If you're at home, decaf coffee. If you're at home, you can have caffeinated coffee, and we'll hopefully see you in a couple nights, and fingers crossed for nice weather. And thanks everybody for coming out and for signing on. Bye.
Thanks for the good meeting, for the lovely meeting. Loved it.
Yeah, I just occurred to me that might be a nice thing to do. And